it takes a whole of society approach to actually, just simply putting the responsibility on government alone is not going to help people in this country. I myself am a rape survivor. At the age of 15, I was gang raped. So this topic is very close to my heart. And, I think that something seriously needs to be done, and it needs to be done absolutely urgently.
But how do you think the recent incidents, such as the CWECWE case, has impacted the public's perception of girls' safety? And do you think this has led to increased awareness and action?
Definitely. As you can see, there's quite an uproar and upsurge in community speaking out against this type of abuse. And the saddest part is that it's now affecting really young children. I mean, CWECWE was just 7 years old to be, brutally raped over and over again. It's not acceptable. And I think it comes down to educating children at home, specifically, but rather particularly the male child needs to learn that that kind of behavior is not acceptable, and mothers need to educate their sons on how, the rights of women and what their behavior in terms of what they can and what they cannot do.
But what policies and laws are currently in place to protect girls from violence and abuse? And are there any gaps or weaknesses in these policies and laws that need to be addressed?
Yeah, look, there are policies in place. However, they're not specifically targeting child. It's just children in general. So, there's in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, Section 24 says that everyone has the right to an environment that is not harmful to their health or their well-being. And then Section 28 outlines the basic rights of children, and it includes the right to care, nutrition, shelter, basic health, and social services. But there's no laws that particularly pertain to the girl child or the woman specifically. GBV is general because it could be women or children, but no laws in place that are actually there to protect the female. Unfortunately, there is that gap in legislation.
But how can we ensure, the effective implementation and enforcement of these policies and laws? And what role can communities and civil society play in supporting these efforts?
Well, like I said previously, it comes back down to educating the male child. Mothers need to educate the male child. And then also with communities, with the easy access to drugs, and alcohol for young children. And I mean, alcohol is freely available to everyone. And, we also need to look at that, the access to these kind of drugs and alcohol. But particularly educating the male child, I really feel that it's a behavioral thing that the male child needs to learn from very young, on how to communicate with women, and that respect kind of thing, because all men come from a woman anyway. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
But how can we engage communities in efforts to prevent violence and abuse against girls? And what strategies have been successful in other contexts?
Look, it's not only at home, but in school we need to educate. And I remember when I was little, there was a lot of educating, behavioral education when I was growing up. That is lacking in education these days. That etiquette and the behavior, it's lacking in our education system. And then also just every day, NPOs and NGOs are doing a really amazing job, but it's just not it's not filtering out there to in the community. So we need to start doing a lot more in communities so that we can educate children about their behavior and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable.
But what role can education play in preventing these incidents, and how can we integrate this into our education system? And are there any specific programs or initiatives that have shown promise?
Well, I can't say there are any programs or initiatives that I've seen that have made a positive impact on the protection of the girl child. And I think that men need to start showing there's more respect for the female, for the woman, because there seems to be this lack of respect towards women, particularly by men. I'm not sure if it's a cultural thing in South Africa, but that respect is missing. There's something missing there with respect with men and women. And we need to start standing up, and we need to start changing that. As women, we need to speak up against the men when they disrespect us. We need to say, hey, you don't speak to me that way, you don't look at me that way, that kind of thing. Because if we don't do that and we don't force men to start respecting women, it's getting worse over time. And I think it's time that we took our power back as women and started protecting each other by standing up against this disrespect. In terms of initiatives, I really don't see any programs that are out there where we're protecting the girl child or woman as such, because as you can see in South Africa, and particularly KZN, if you look at our stats, it's getting worse.
It is indeed getting worse as well. But how can we hold, I know you spoke about not having initiatives and all of these things, but so how can we hold the government officials accountable for ensuring that safety and well-being of girls and little kids, and what mechanisms are in place to monitor progress and address these challenges?
Yeah, look, the only place I really see government failing is in terms of enforcement. There's no enforcement. The police are not investigating these cases and bringing these people to book. And children are not safe at schools simply because the men that are working at schools are child offenders, and the child offenders register is just failing us because these people are not mentioned in the child offenders register. They should not be looking at this is a first offense and let's give them a slap on the hand and let them carry on, and then we bring them into an environment where they are among children again. We need to, the first incident, you need to be registered on that child offenders register so that people know you can run away to wherever you want to, but your name will always be there. And then also schools and organizations, when you employ these men, they need to go to that child abuse, woman abuse registry, and that needs to be the background checks that we need to start looking at when employing men in organizations, in schools, and in environments where young girls are going to be, and because we really need to start protecting our young girls and women more, In terms of society, people need to speak out, and women need to speak out when they're being abused by men, because, a little slap might be forgivable today, but it just gets worse the next and the next and the next time. And before you know it, you find women's bodies lying around, and you're getting young children now, like CWECWE, that are being raped by these offenders that It should have been listed on the sex offenders register in the first place.
Absolutely. But what do you think would make a change? Like, what is the plan of action in your mind that you think that would make a real difference? I know we spoke about obviously introducing policies and initiatives, but what do you feel that would make a real difference and that will shake these people to stop doing what they're doing? The death penalty?
Look, I don't believe that we should be taking people's lives into our hands. But we certainly need to strengthen enforcement. Enforcement really needs to be strengthened. The courts need to be firm against this type of abuse, and we need to start locking people up. They need to actually face the full might of the law, so that we can actually get them behind bars and not back out on the streets, so that they can abuse or rape another woman or child.
Absolutely. But as a member of the KZN provincial legislature, can you share any personal experience or insights that have shaped your perspective on this issue? And how do you stay informed about the concerns that needs and the needs of the girls in KZN?
Well, like I said, personally, I'm a rape survivor myself. So like I said, this issue is very close to my heart. And, you know, it shakes me to the core when I hear of another rape or another incident of abuse against a woman. It's just, I can't even describe it in words. Words can't describe personally how I feel about it. And I just feel that as women, we really need to take our lives into our own hands. We need to teach our young girls about the dangers that are lurking out there, so that they know, they are aware. Because like you said, and with CWECWE, this happened to her by someone that she knows and she probably trusted. You know, we think that we can trust people, but the ones that are closest to us and the ones that we trust the most are the ones that will do this to us. So we really need to take matters into our hands as women and stand up against this, and not allow this to happen to us or any other woman in society.